Now that we've talked a bit about teaching consonant sounds and shared some ideas for how to teach consonant sounds, now we'll move on and think a bit about how to teach vowel sounds. The first question we can ask ourselves is, what is the difference between a consonant and a vowel? What makes a consonant, and what makes a vowel a vowel? So take a moment to reflect on that. To your mind, what is the difference between the two? One common, well-accepted definition of a consonant is that it's a speech sound made when air from the lungs is blocked in some way. It's blocked or constricted in some way. Now that contrasts with a vowel sound where the air is relatively unconstricted as it leaves the lungs. Now when we make that distinction between blocked air or constricted air being a consonant and unconstricted air being a vowel, that sets us up to have to realize that we cannot classify vowels the same way that we classify consonants. So when we classify vowels, we need to ask ourselves slightly different questions than when we classify consonants. As we remember back, in the case of consonants, we need to think of place of articulation and manner of articulation. However, in the case of vowels, we need to ask these four questions. And the first question we need to ask ourselves is, how high is the tongue in the mouth when we make the sound? So for example, the difference between E, where the tongue is high in the mouth, and ah, where the tongue is low in the mouth. The second question we need to ask ourselves is, what part of the tongue is involved? So is it the front, the middle, or the back? And an example would be the difference between E, where the front of the tongue is more involved, and oo, where the back of the tongue is more involved. The third question we need to ask ourselves is the position of the lips. So for example, when I say the vowel O, you'll notice that my lips are rounded, but when I say the vowel ah, you'll notice that my lips are less rounded. So it's rounded vowels versus less rounded vowels or unrounded vowels. And the last question we need to ask ourselves is, how much muscle tension is there in the tongue when we make the vowel sound? So for example, when I say E, we'll notice there's quite a bit of tension in the tongue. But when I say eh, there's much less tension in the tongue. Now, we're going to spend the next few moments going through the various vowel sounds in Standard English. And we'll use this, primarily this diagram to do it. However, as I go through this diagram, I want you to imagine how it maps in the mouth as we look at it. So for example, when I talk about a high front vowel, keep in mind that the vowel tongue is most of the tongue action is up here at the top front of the mouth. Likewise, when I talk about a high back vowel, most of the action is happening the back of the mouth and the top of the mouth, and so on and so forth. As we go through this grid, keep in mind where the tongue is primarily in the mouth as the various sounds are being made. So let's start off with high front vowels. Now, the tense high front vowel is the vowel that we see in the word C. So E, C, that's tense high front vowel. Now the lax vowel is articulated almost in the same way, except it's slightly shorter. So we'll say E and E, seat, sit. Now you'll notice my mouth as I make these two words. I say E, E. Now when I say the tense version of that vowel, I often say it with a smile. So E, I. The lax version of that vowel doesn't have a smile. Now the next vowel is the mid-front tense vowel. And that is the vowel from the word day, A. And that contrasts with the mid-lax front vowel, as in the word bet or pen. or men. The next is the low front vowel. And the low front vowel is from the word at, or cat, or man, or pan. These words all have a low front vowel. Now, in the terms of showing this to your students or articulating this for your students, one trick that I found helpful is to demonstrate all of the front vowels and show how it goes from high to low in the mouth as you demonstrate those vowels. So for example, we can do it like this. E, I, A, E, A. And as you notice, with some exaggeration, the tongue is lowering more and more and more as I go from the high front vowels to the low front vowels. Now the next vowel we want to be aware of is the back vowels. And the low back vowel is the one vowel that depends on the North American accent. In some accents it has this vowel, and in other accents it doesn't have this vowel. But it's the vowel that Midwesterners would pronounce as pat, pot, as opposed to pot in some dialects. So it's that ah, John, sorry. And that is the low back vowel. Now, the tense mid-back vowel is located here. The tense mid-back vowel is the vowel in boat, O, or coat, house, and so forth. That's the tense mid-back vowel, O. And the lax version of that vowel is aw, as in law, or caught, or taught. And the high back vowel, the high back tense vowel is oo, as in boot. Ooh, that's the tense vowel. And the lax vowel is, the high back lax vowel is as in book. So look, look is one way to make that distinction. Ooh, And again, one trick that I find helpful for both the high back tense and the mid back tense and lax vowels is to round your lips for one and not round your lips for the other. So for example, boo, oo, o, ah. And showing that distinction helps articulate the vowels a bit more clearly. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about the central vowels. And in standard English, there are two central vowels that we need to be concerned about. The first one is the low, mid, unrounded back vowel. And that's the vowel that we'll hear in the word cup, or luck, or fuss. And the second is the central vowel known as schwa. And the schwa looks like the upside down E, is the vowel we can hear at the beginning of the word about, or the end of the word puma, or in the beginning of the word onion. And this is a common vowel in English unstressed syllables. Now, I'd like to give you a moment, and if you will, pause the video, have a look at your handout, and go through here and see if you can add one word that gives an example of each of the various vowels that we've talked about. So go ahead, take a minute, pause the video, and see if you can complete this handout.